I can understand a tax hike. There's no way 10.5% is going to fly.
I inherited a budget shortfall of $1.8 billion. It's a huge financial mess.
Doing a double take over double digits. The hefty hike for homeowners. Prepare to pay more to live in Toronto. Good evening. When it comes to your property taxes, how does a 16.5% increase sound? That's the threat.
At a time when nearly all of us are focusing on our finances, the bills are coming due. Canada's largest city facing down a frightening fiscal future. And it's not only locals who are being asked to step up. We have full coverage tonight. Rahim Ladani with the impact on your bank account. Siobhan Morris is looking at the political play by the mayor. But we start with CTV's Natalie Johnson and the ominous budget outlook. Natalie.
Well, Michelle, Mayor Olivia Chow campaigned on a modest property tax increase, but the number being presented to taxpayers here today is much bigger than that. We are talking double digits, the highest tax hike in Toronto history. There is sticker shock at City Hall today as taxpayers face a residential property tax hike in the double digits.
I did not create this financial mess, but it needs to be fixed.
In the opening budget unveiled today, the city's top bureaucrat admits the ask is big.
It is never easy proposing a residential property tax increase. We understand as staff the impact that this has year over year on the people of this community.
But the budget gap is an unprecedented $1.8 billion, even bigger than expected due to increased demand for shelter services and new transit investments. Combine that with pandemic hangover costs and inflation, and the proposed residential property tax increase totals 10.5%, including the 1.5% hike to the City Building Fund for transit and housing. Total cost to the average homeowner, $31 more a month.
It's going to make life very, very difficult for people.
To come forward with the largest tax hike in the history of the City of Toronto at a time right now when people are at a breaking point, it's completely tone deaf.
But Torontonians could be asked to dig even deeper than that if the feds don't come to the table with $250 million in refugee support money. If not, staff warn, taxpayers will be forced to cough up another 6%, meaning a total 16.5% tax hike.
That is the potential crisis we face. Because yes, there are human beings facing crisis, and that is the fiscal crisis that we will face if we don't have the funds.
The proposal freezes TTC fares for 2024 and gives a slight bump to the police budget. While windrow clearing is among the items on the chopping block, part of $600 million in savings already accounted for. That's in addition to the $400 million in operating saved through the New Deal with the province.
Let's work together. Fix this financial mess, get Toronto back on track.
Turning to taxpayers at a tough time in the face of a historic hike. Mayor Chow stressed today that this is just the first draft of the document. The public will have an opportunity to weigh in on the coming weeks. Mayor Chow will then make her own changes to the financial plan and will need to convince the majority of her colleagues to support it when it goes to a voting council on Valentine's Day. Reporting live at City Hall, I'm Natalie Johnson. Michelle and Nathan, back to you.
Thank you, Natalie. So that's the top level. Now the trickle down. After many years of relative consistency, this increase might come as quite the shocker to some.
Families already watching every dollar, now finding out they'll be spending more. CTV's Rahim Ladani is getting the pulse of the people tonight. Rahim, what are you hearing?
Well, Nathan, I'll tell you, we've heard a wide range of sentiments in speaking with people today. Everything from frustration to concern, and even there is some understanding as people try to come to terms with paying a lot more to live in the city.
Favorite flower is orchids.
Inside this local flower shop in Mimico, Helen Reese is constantly battling a budget.
We are already paying, as business owners and homeowners, we're already paying a lot of taxes. They should decrease instead of increase.
That feeling of discontent is being met with worry from others who are concerned for those already struggling to get by.
They're already stretching, all the car payments and the kids going to school and the babysitting. Wow, 10% is much.
The proposed 10.5% tax bill hike comes out on average to an extra $31 per month. The city insists this hike is needed to help support shelter and affordable housing, transit services, and community safety. And some residents agree it is necessary.
If you want to have the services that we see declining, well, how do you get that? You have to pay for them.
I just think it's time. It's inevitable, and I'm for it.
But not everyone is for an even bigger tax increase, and that may happen. With Toronto City Council warning it could be to the tune of 16.5% if Ottawa doesn't chip in.
I live on my own. It's just me and my baby. So it's hard for me for sure. I don't think anyone's happy about it.
Back at Reese's store, she feels the city needs to focus on improving the current services first.
Our snow never gets plowed in the back of our alley, and I just get tickets by just loading and unloading in the back, which I don't know where my taxes are going.
Before asking the people who live in the city for more money.
Earlier, Natalie mentioned public consultations, and there are going to be a number of town halls that people can join in via phone. The first one is scheduled for January 16th at 7 o'clock. Reporting live, I'm Raheem Ladani. Nathan, I'll send it back to you.
All right, thank you, Raheem. Next to the politics of all this, Olivia Chow putting other levels of government on notice.
Fresh calls today for Ottawa to open its wallet and the consequences if it doesn't. CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris is live with more. Siobhan.
Well, Michelle, I spoke with one political analyst who says that what Olivia Chow and city staff have done here is held taxpayers hostage and sent a ransom note to Ottawa, but he says it's a move that may not pay off. The honeymoon for Olivia Chow is over, with the possibility of a tax increase of more than 16% on the table.
It's so dramatic, it's so breathtaking, it's got such a sticker shock.
The city manager says that number assumes no cuts to service and that the federal government doesn't help.
I find that to be hard to believe, that there will be absolutely no federal partnership on refugees and asylum seekers.
But political analyst Scott Reid thinks the mayor has overplayed her hand.
Olivia Chow's hoping that with these tax hikes, she can blame past city councils that didn't take action. She's hoping that she can blame the federal government.
The mayor insists the numbers and warnings delivered by senior staff aren't political ammunition.
The city manager, Paul Johnson, is not a politician. I do not believe it is his style to posture.
Still, Reid says Chow, who campaigned on modest tax increases, had other options.
10.5% is going to be chiseled across her political tombstone, and I do think that in a way, this takes the federal government off the hook.
A federal government today stressing how much it's already forked out to Toronto. We heard similar language from the federal finance minister last month.
No federal government in Canadian history has invested as much in cities overall, and specifically in the city of Toronto, as our government has.
A senior government source tells CTV News it is looking for ways to support Toronto and wants to keep talking.
At the end of the day, voters are going to blame the person who raised their taxes, who is in the mayor's chair, and who's made this announcement.
The city hasn't made any specific request for more cash from the province, just after inking a historic new deal that includes a takeover of the Gardiner and DVP. But the Ford government, too, says Ottawa needs to help the country's biggest city. Scott Reid feels that today's proposal is so hard to stomach for so many people, it could have a damaging effect not just in the city of Toronto, but for other New Democratic politicians across Ontario, like we saw after Bob Rae's government. Reporting live, I'm Siobhan Morris. Nathan, back to you.
All right, thank you, Siobhan. A quick reminder, you can find extensive coverage of this story online at ctvnewstoronto.ca. And remember to download the CTV News app.
Straight ahead are conditions inside one Toronto jail leading to reduced sentences for criminals. You're going to want to hear what some judges are saying, and we're not just talking about one case. Try dozens. A CTV News investigation in just moments. But first, to yet another unsettling incident aboard a passenger plane. This one right here in Toronto.
The wild scene playing out during the boarding process of a recent Air Canada flight. A passenger somehow managed to open a cabin door, falling to the tarmac. CTV's Mike Walker is live at Pearson Airport with more. Mike.
Well, Nathan, Michelle, this happened Monday night on an Air Canada plane that was boarding passengers, which was destined for Dubai. The airline tells us the passenger had boarded the plane just moments before they had opened another cabin door and has now launched an investigation into the incident. The Air Canada plane destined for Dubai was still boarding at the gate when the airline says a passenger opened a cabin door and then fell several feet to the ground. Air Canada says the passenger boarded the plane normally, but instead of proceeding to their seat, opened a cabin door on the opposite side of the aircraft. The passenger sustained injuries falling to the tarmac, with emergency services and the authorities attending. It happened around 9 Monday night. Peel police determined the passenger, a man from Thunder Bay, was in a state of crisis. They say he suffered minor injuries, was apprehended and taken to hospital for necessary treatment.
The amount that we've traveled, we've never experienced anything like that. So I think you just get to the airport and you hope that nothing like that happens.
Many travelers at Pearson Airport today say this incident is alarming.
Scary, yeah. Like, how would that happen? Doors are available to open like that?
If we could do it there where, if you were taking off or something, it could be catastrophic.
The Boeing 777 carrying more than 300 passengers was delayed for nearly 6 hours, but did eventually take off.
It's not a straightforward process to open an aircraft door, but it's also not extremely complicated.
This former Air Canada executive says this incident is highly unusual and will require a thorough review by the airline. That will include interviewing agents at the boarding gate and crew members.
Figure out how exactly this happened and how a traveler boarding a flight, which is very routine, which travelers do every single day, could have resulted in this really strange mishap.
Air Canada adds that all boarding and cabin operating procedures were followed. Now, Peel police tell us, given the circumstances, they won't be laying any charges in this incident. Air Canada says, meantime, it's continuing to review the matter. Reporting live, I'm Mike Walker. Back to you.
All right, thank you, Mike. Coming up, a store clerk fights off a would-be robber at a Peterborough store. So why is the employee now facing charges? A case that is the town talking and the police chief on the defensive.
But first, a live look outside. A lot less stormy today, but did you feel that wind? Enough to send hats flying and whip up a wind chill? Jessica Smith is here with a look at the current conditions. What are we working with, Jess?
Still a little gusty as we head into the first half of our night. And as far as how much rain, towards Pearson, about 25 millimeters by the time it was all said and done yesterday. A few wet flurries early on this morning. We're still seeing the trickle of that, but the bulk of that system really has pushed its way further east. We're still looking at those really strong wind gusts. So as Michelle mentioned, hold on to your hats as we head in towards this evening. Now, over towards the GTA, we're still hovering just above that seasonal mark for the most part. Heading into tonight, the wind chill pretty wicked, but it gets colder next week, and there's more snow on the way. Those details coming up. I'll send things right now back over to Nathan.
Thank you, Jess. To a CTV News investigation now. It's been called Guantanamo North and a plea factory.
Multiple judges sounding the alarm about what they're calling inhumane conditions for inmates at Toronto's South Detention Centres, saying that's why they're reducing the sentences of dozens of criminals. CTV's John Woodward joins us now. And John, what's behind this?
Michelle, the judges are denouncing the infestations, the injuries, and the constant lockdowns as they give extra credit for time spent in this jail, which means convicted kidnappers, shooters, drug traffickers, all will get out earlier in a standoff with the provincial government they say hasn't made things more humane there for years.
Toronto South Detention Centre is a maximum security jail that can house up to 2,000 inmates. Among them was Yannick Ellison, who threatened bar patron Jason Coburn at a North York bar during a dispute about money, then handed a COVID-19 mask as a disguise to another man who shot him dead. Ellison spent just over 2 years in custody before trial. A judge found almost a year of that was in lockdown because of staff shortages. Lockdowns mean that inmates are locked in their cells 24 hours a day, sometimes for multiple days. They have no privacy and are forced to urinate and defecate in front of their cellmates. They are unable to shower. The lockdowns cause increased tension and violence. Ellison pleaded guilty. The judge said in December those conditions meant a sentence of 8 years would drop by 6 months.
I'd like to say unusual, but unfortunately it's all too common.
So common, a review by CTV News discovered 24 cases in 2023 where judges reduced sentences by as little as a few days to almost 2 years, pointing to continuous and frequent lockdowns, cells infested with ants, cockroaches, and spiders, an infestation of mice as well as silverfish. Their decisions benefiting criminals including Zakaria Youssef, who ordered shots fired at a lawyer's office in York Region, Noad Zagazab, who shot and killed a man in a Scarborough apartment stairwell, and admitted child pornography maker Ramanan Pathmanathan. One judge writing, "I agree with the position expressed by many judges that lockdowns arising from staff shortages and even those arising for security reasons should not be seen as just the price to be paid by those in custody." Another saying a sentence reduction demonstrates the court's condemnation of these conditions.
It's not rehabilitating these guys and girls in any way, shape, or form. It's making them worse off. It's making them angrier.
Ontario's government says it has hired 434 new guards there and is spending $500 million to modernize correctional institutions.
It's a travesty.
NDP Justice critic Kristen Wongtam said it's not enough, and the situation is now putting convicted criminals back on the street sooner.
It seems to me that the government is in denial that there is even a crisis.
A crisis as those sentenced to serious crimes face harder but shorter time.
Just say they are not going to give sentencing credit that would make a sentence too low. And in some cases we reviewed, they didn't apply the credit if it would cause someone to just walk away. Other judges have called the situation in Toronto South Dickensian. And unless that changes, expect these lighter sentences to continue. Reporting live, I'm John Woodward. Nathan, back to you.
All right, thank you, John. And if you have a story you'd like us to look into for CTV News Investigates, make sure to visit our website for secure and anonymous ways to get in touch.
Now to the emotional appeals from loved ones of a man gunned down outside his Oshawa business.
9 months later and still no arrests. Their lives on hold until justice is served. CTV's Beth McDonnell has the story.
We have been paralyzed by grief.
Standing between pictures of Michael Negris and the suspects, Catherine Collard details the anguish since her 30-year-old brother was murdered.
This has broken my family and shattered our faith in humanity.
On March 30th last year, just over 9 months ago, Negris was gunned down outside his work, Cash Connections, an Oshawa pawn shop. His death leaving customers and relatives alike heartbroken.
He was the loudest, funniest, most generous person in any room. He loved life and he lived to entertain. He was a proud mama's boy who loved being the baby of our family. And my soul aches at the thought of never seeing my brother again.
If you came in as a complete stranger, like upset with the world, you'll leave smiling. Like, he's that kind of guy.
Police say the shooter waited in the parking lot for an hour and a half before Negris got off work, came out of the store and was shot. Why he was killed remains a mystery.
We've been unable to determine any possible motive.
What police can say, they believe a suspect wearing a Champion sweatshirt stole a black Ford F-150 Raptor truck from a hotel parking lot in Brampton about a week before the shooting and left it in the area of Lawrence West and Keele in Toronto. Officers believe the suspect in the Puma sweatshirt is the shooter and alleged he picked up the truck in Toronto on the day of the murder and went to the Oshawa parking lot where Negris was shot. Police found the black truck not far from the store, but the suspect got away.
The investigation to date has not found anything in Michael Negris's personal or professional life that would lead investigators to believe he would be targeted in the attack.
The family believes identifying the suspects is possible.
I stand here desperately begging you, please help us. Somebody must know something.
Collard says they'll do everything they can to stop her brother's case from going cold. Beth McDonnell, CTV News.
York Regional Police say a man left critically hurt in a shooting in Vaughan last month has died in hospital. On the morning of December 23rd, police responded to a call for multiple shots fired at a plaza at Highway 7 near Ansley Grove Boulevard. They found 34-year-old Robert Hinn of Vaughan with several wounds. He was rushed to a trauma center and died of his injuries on Sunday. Investigators say the shooting was likely targeted, and they're looking for at least 2 suspects seen fleeing in a dark SUV.
Also in Vaughan, police are asking for the public's help finding those responsible in a suspected case of hate-motivated vandalism. The incident was captured on camera early Tuesday morning in the area of Glen Shields Avenue and Dufferin Street. Stopped outside a home, 2 people can be seen getting out of a dark Jeep driven by an unseen third suspect. They then shatter the windows of an SUV with Israeli flag decals. York police say a hate crime investigator is on this case.
An update on a story we first brought you last night. A suspect now identified in the death of an Ontario man in Florida.
Killed over the weekend in the aftermath of a football game. CTV's Allison Hurst is following this story and joins us live with this update. Allison.
The family tells us it's a positive step that Miami Gardens police have identified and interviewed a suspect, found a vehicle in the midst of their heartache, but they say they want justice.
The homicide of Dylan Isaacs has left his family shattered.
This is a shock, and I want justice.
The Bills fan went to the Miami Buffalo game Sunday night, and police say when he was walking back to his car, he was shot and killed.
They shot him. About 6 rounds. Just thankful no one else was hurt, because there was kids around there too.
Miami Gardens police say it started when a driver, allegedly driving erratically, struck a pedestrian. Isaac's family says that pedestrian was Isaac's. There was an altercation that followed, and that's when police say the driver pulled out a gun, fired it, and took off.
That's not something that someone should lose their life for at all.
News of the shooting has reached some of the players from that game. Dolphins receiver Tyreek Hill posted on Twitter, "Football's supposed to bring us together, not divide us. Remember that part." Police have not said whether the game had anything to do with the shooting, but they have since found and seized the vehicle and interviewed a suspect.
The family want justice. We want that person caught who did that senseless act. And for him to pay for the crime.
Gathering together, they're remembering the fun, loyal 30-year-old.
Dylan loved family. He loved get-togethers. We'd have Sunday dinner every week here at my house, and he's going to be missed.
His mom and aunt now cling to each other and his memory.
I got to keep going. Got to get him to his resting place.
They are working to bring his body back home.
Police found the suspect vehicle Monday night in Palm Beach County and say the investigation remains ongoing. Reporting live, I'm Allison Hurst. Michelle, back to you.
Thanks, Allison. In Peterborough, lots of people are asking why tonight. Why a convenience store clerk is charged in the wake of a would-be robbery at their store.
Those questions even prompting a response from the police chief. CTV's John Musselman has the story.
The story begins inside this Circle K variety store last Friday around 2:30 a.m. Peterborough police say a robber confronted the 22-year-old clerk demanding cash. There was a struggle. The suspect hit the store employee with the bat, but the clerk was able to grab the bat away. He chased the thief outside the store and hit him several times. The suspect sustained serious head injuries. He's being treated at a Toronto hospital. The store clerk has since been charged with aggravated assault, and it's not going over well with residents who live near this store.
I find that unbelievable because, I mean, the clerk is just kind of defending himself.
Just criminalizing people who are defending themselves in this day and age and letting the criminals get away with what they want.
You came to rob the store? It's believed most of this was captured on security video, which has been reviewed by police. The suspect is also being charged with robbery and assault with a weapon. Criminal defense lawyer Ari Goldkind says the charge against the clerk is not surprising.
And the robber was put into the hospital, that the clerk went just too far. I know that's unappealing to say in this day and age, but you don't get to play police officer once the threat to you has subsided.
Still, it hasn't stopped the criticism. The local police chief posted a response on social media after it was announced the store clerk had been charged with a criminal offense. Quote, "Yes, this is an unusual case, but in a world where security cameras are everywhere, do you really think we would not have seized and reviewed the footage as part of the investigation and prior to laying charges? This is not about the perception that criminals go free while victims of crime are penalized. This is about the law." Employees at the store tell CTV News the clerk regularly works the overnight shift. John Musselman, CTV News in Peterborough.
Weather warnings were in place for much of Canada today with frigid temperatures and heavy snow in the forecast. Up to 40 centimeters of snow is expected in some parts. It is also extremely cold. Northern areas of Alberta and Saskatchewan could see wind chills of -50 through the weekend, along with parts of BC, Yukon, and the Northwest Territories. Quebec and Atlantic Canada are also affected. Schools were closed today across New Brunswick, on Prince Edward Island, and in parts of Nova Scotia.
In the U.S., a major storm lashed the Northeast with rain and heavy winds. Power was knocked out to hundreds of thousands of customers after violent weather struck most of the country beginning on Monday. Several deaths are blamed on the storm that resulted in tornadoes and deadly accidents in the south and blizzards in the Midwest and Northwest.
Ecuador is a nation on edge. Schools and stores were closed today and many people stayed home.
Soldiers are roaming the streets as authorities respond to a wave of criminal violence. CTV's Geneviève Beauchemin reports.
Ecuador's descent into chaos heightened fears through the South American country. Police and the military conducted raids, scouring cities for gang leaders. Officials have arrested more than 70 people, saying they hoped the forcefulness of their response to violence would send a message to citizens that they can trust their national police. For now, shops are closed, classes canceled, and streets in the main cities are nearly empty. Ecuador was once a peaceful haven in South America, but over the past 5 years, gangs vying for the control of the drug trade have morphed it into a narco war zone.
Esta lucha es de todos.
President Daniel Noboa vowed to crack down after his election in November. He said today that his country is now at war. He declared a state of emergency Monday after the prison break of a kingpin, Adolfo Marcias, alias Fito. Gangs have taken guards and police officers hostage. Videos of executions have circulated online. And violence peaked as hooded men stormed a television station, pointing guns, wielding explosives as people watched on live TV. A police tactical squad ended the standoff, arresting a dozen people. Those taken hostage described moments of terror, saying one cameraman was shot in the leg, another's arm was broken. Jeff Karam and his family live 20 minutes from the TV station. He's a Canadian from Toronto and has lived in Ecuador for 18 years.
It really is an amazing country. The people here are amazing. There's just so many amazing aspects of it. But if you don't have security, you don't have anything.
More than 2,300 Canadians are registered in the region. Global Affairs has heard from 18 of them over the past few days with questions, including about travel. Geneviève Beauchemin, CTV News, Montreal.
In the Middle East, there appears to be no let-up to Israel's offensive in the Gaza Strip. There were strikes in the southern and central parts of the territory today. Israel said it would withdraw some of its troops and shift to what the U.S. says would be a more targeted campaign. Gazan officials say over 23,000 Palestinians have died since the war began. Officials say the entire population of the enclave is also in a food crisis. 576,000 people are at catastrophic or starvation levels.
The World Health Organization canceled its 6th medical mission to northern Gaza today. It was called off because requests to visit had not been approved and security assurances have not been provided since the WHO's last visit on December 26th. The UN Health Agency says only 15 hospitals in Gaza remain functional, even partially.
In Jerusalem, thousands of people gathered at the Western Wall to pray for the release of the remaining hostages being held in Gaza. About 1,200 people were killed in the October 7th Hamas-led attack. 250 others were taken captive. Around 110 have been released. Israel says about 20 hostages were killed while in captivity.
The United Nations is seeking more than $3 billion to finance aid to Ukraine. UN agencies will ask donors next week to help again this year, saying financial support must be sustained. The goal is to help 8.5 million Ukrainians. The world body says more than 14.5 million people need assistance. That is 40% of the population.
A reminder today from the World Health Organization, COVID-19 still poses a serious threat.
Although COVID-19 is no longer a global health emergency, the virus is still circulating, changing, and killing.
Almost 10,000 deaths were reported to the WHO last month. There was a 42% increase in hospitalizations. Increased transmission was fueled by holiday gatherings and the JN1 variant, which is now most commonly reported globally.
An all-new period in hockey addressing the mental health needs of NHL players. Coming up, the new program touted as first of its kind in professional sports.
And I'm Pat Foran. Coming up on Consumer Alert, have you ever checked your grocery bill and found a mistake? You may be surprised to know if the price was scanned incorrectly, you could be entitled to get the item for free. It's a policy you should know about. I'll have the details. That story is just ahead.
More active weather on the way tomorrow. So for the kids heading off to school or even for yourself heading off to work, a few layers might be a good idea. The good news, we stay above seasonal tomorrow, but things are going to change as we head in towards the beginning of our weekend with a major system on the way. And stay with us. We've got another full night of great shows for you right here on CTV.
We all know how expensive groceries are, and if items are scanned incorrectly at the checkout, you could end up paying more than you should.
Well, you should also know many stores have a scanner price accuracy code that could get you some products for free. Pat Foran has our story on Consumer Alert. Pat.
Thanks, Nathan and Michelle. The code has been around for over 20 years, but there are still many people who don't know about it. When stores started using barcodes and scanners at the checkout, the code was brought in to protect shoppers in case of mistakes. It's happened to many of us before. You go shopping and find out later you were overcharged at the checkout. If it's the store's fault because they scanned a price incorrectly, you may be able to get the item for free.
I had no idea.
I didn't know that.
That's good to know.
The scanner price accuracy code is voluntary, but it's followed by most major retailers in Canada, including grocery stores and pharmacies.
This was all about protecting the public. If there is a mistake, the customer is owed money.
According to the code, if a product less than $10 is scanned incorrectly, you get it for free. If a product is more than $10 and scanned incorrectly, you get $10 off. The code only applies to non-price ticketed items, and there may be other restrictions, but if you're buying something and the price doesn't match, you should ask if you're eligible for a discount.
We really believe in the code. This is a voluntary code that we put in place, and it's because we want people to know we're committed to fair and accurate pricing.
According to a study by Dalhousie University, about 10% of people who do grocery shopping have a mistake on their grocery bill, so it's definitely worth checking.
If you don't pay attention, you will probably pay more for your groceries, more than you should.
Shoppers we spoke with said now that they know about the code, they'll be watching their grocery bill much closer.
The consumer should know about this. I think this is important for all of us to know, especially with the increasing food prices right now.
If you have questions about the scanner price accuracy code or feel it was applied incorrectly on something you purchased, you can call 1-866-499-4599. And for more information on the code, what's covered, and stores that are taking part, you can also check the Retail Council of Canada's website. Every mistake you notice could save you money. On your side, I'm Pat Foran.
If you have a consumer story idea, email us at alert@ctv.ca.
More sections of Ontario Place are now closed to the public as the Ford government's reconstruction efforts there intensify. The province announced the closure of the West Island and other areas, meaning only the parts seen in green and Budweiser Stage in purple there are still open. The West Island will be the site of the Therma Spa and the new Science Centre. The Ministry of Infrastructure says it's doing critical work on an attraction that will eventually welcome millions. Advocacy group Ontario Place for All says it'll continue to fight those plans.
All right, to the forecast. We got through all that rain and snow, and now it's just the cold. It's freezing out there.
Cold, the wind not helping matters, but we kind of have to look ahead to another storm, and this one could be a little trickier.
This one coming more as a wet snow system. So we saw that wet snow begin early on with the other one on Tuesday. Then it just became straight up rain, which is still an issue for a lot of people. But as we head in towards our Friday night through to our Saturday, that's when another serious system rolls in. Still snow on the way, but there's more snow as we head into the weekend. Weather is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train. Now, we saw a few wet flurries early on this morning. That tapered off, and generally just a cloudy and albeit mild day, still above seasonal. Northern Ontario experiencing the cool down. This will come for us eventually as we head in towards next week, but for now, still relatively warm, all things considered. 0 here in the city feels like -7. Anywhere north of North Bay, still looking at those minus double-digit temperatures. As we make our way through tonight, we'll drop down to -1. It feels like -7. The seasonal norm is -10. We are still above where we should be, even when you factor in the wind chill. Getting into the day tomorrow, we are watching a weak low kind of making its way across the Great Lakes, set to bring maybe 2 to 5 centimeters as we head throughout the day tomorrow. That's not the weather maker. That comes Friday night. Timing everything out as we head into the day tomorrow. Again, those weak lows make their way across the Great Lakes, bringing the first round of some snow, some wintry weather, some wet snow. But again, it'll be 2 degrees, so we're still relatively mild. It's as we head into Friday night where things start to change. So again, tomorrow morning, just in time for the commute, sending the kids off to school, pack a few extra layers. They're going to need it. It tapers off, though, as we head into the late afternoon and just a cloudy night. Friday starts off not too bad, even maybe a little bit of brief sunshine. But it's as we head into our Friday night, right around 8:30, that the bulk of this really settles in to the GTA. It starts in that southwestern corner, and then we're seeing this widespread system across central and southern Ontario right throughout the day. As far as how much, we're looking at generally through the downtown core, 5 to 10, the GTA maybe 10 to 15, and beyond that 10 to 20. So areas up towards Barrie, for example, through Peterborough, they could see that 10 to 20. It doesn't take a lot of snow to make driving a little dicey. So getting into our Friday, once again, still above seasonal tomorrow, Friday, Saturday, but it's as we head in towards the end of the weekend where temperatures start to drop. As the system pushes past us, that's when that cold Arctic air comes in, and by the time we get to next week, our daytime highs, those wind chills could be in the double digits. Nathan.
All right, thank you, Jess.
Thanks.
Also tonight, a rare disease that claimed the life of actor Adon Kanto is becoming more common. Pauline Chan gets the latest medical research on appendix cancer and ways to decrease the risk. Hollywood is mourning the loss of actor Adon Kanto.
As CTV's health reporter Pauline Chan tells us, he kept his battle against cancer quiet.
Adon Kanto was best known as a star of Designated Survivor and more recently, The Cleaning Lady. He did not appear in the current 3rd season of the show, but was hoping to rejoin the cast later in the season. Now his publicist has confirmed he died on January 8th of appendiceal cancer. He was 42.
What is the appendix, right? The appendix, it's a vestigial structure. It's a structure that we don't know the necessary benefits of that sticks off of the colon. So when the appendix gets a malignancy within it, because it's a very small and confined space, there's not really much in the way of symptoms that can come from that.
Dr. Sammy Chatty says most cancers of the appendix are found when patients are treated for appendicitis or other abdominal illness. It's a rare cancer, but it can be treated.
It's usually a combination of chemotherapy and surgery, and sometimes chemotherapy administered during surgery.
Symptoms include pain in the stomach area, bloating, and fluid in the abdomen. Adon Kanto leaves behind his wife Stephanie and 2 children, age 3 and 1. Pauline Chan, CTV News.
Mental health affects everyone, including athletes at the very top of their game.
A new program now helping to support some of hockey's best. CTV's Sean Leathong reports.
McDavid. Oh my goodness, what a pass to McLeod.
Success for professional hockey players relies on support from teammates. A new mental health program for the players is taking a similar approach to player wellness.
It's important for this initiative to happen because it elevates the experience of our players. It addresses not only a hockey need, but a societal need, and encourages our athletes to be proactive and engaged in their own mental health. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Announced today at the Hockey Hall of Fame and led by psychologist and former NHL player Jay Harrison, First Line is a 3-hour program that NHL players can take on a voluntary basis that aims to create mental health leaders inside the dressing room.
A group of first-line ready players who openly prioritize their own mental health, are supportive of their teammates' mental health, and encourage each other to access the resources that can enhance their well-being.
As pressure on pro players can be intense, the National Hockey League Players Association created First Line along with the Health Commission of Canada, finding that players are more likely to talk with someone who can empathize with their struggles.
A player is more likely to talk to another player about challenges, whether it's
their way they play, their family life, what have you. They're together the entire year, basically. So having those tools are important.
First Line has already trained 20 players across 5 teams, with big names like Blake Wheeler and Michael Backlund on the list. Former Leafs general manager and executive director of the PWHL Players Association, Brian Burke, hopes this will grow beyond the NHL.
I think the key to this whole thing is once we get pro athletes to open up about it, it's a lot easier for other people to do it as well.
And I think that when everyone understands that, hey, I got to look after you, and you'll do the same with me, the bond becomes even stronger within a team and galvanizes people, and they become better as a team.
Helping players be the best versions of themselves inside or outside of the game. Sean Leathong, CTV News.
The head coach of the Toronto Raptors could face a significant fine from the NBA. Darko Rajakovic did not like the officiating during last night's loss to the Lakers, and he did not hold back after the game.
What happened tonight, this is completely BS. This is shame. Shame for the referees, shame for the league to allow this. 23 free throws for them, and we get 2 free throws in the fourth quarter. Like, how to play the game. I understand respect for all stars and all that, but we have star players on our team as well.
The Raptors lost 132 to 131. They take on the Clippers tonight.
If you're a fan of The Crown, you'll soon have a chance to own some memorabilia from the set of the Netflix series now that it's come to an end.
Okay, so our job is to try and create the world that the actors can sort of inhabit. We try and make that whole environment feel believable, I suppose.
Everything from the royal characters' costumes to the furniture and dishes to set pieces like the recreated gates of Buckingham Palace are on exhibit at Bonham's Auctioneers in London. They're going under the hammer in person and online, with proceeds funding film and TV scholarships.
After the Golden Globes were handed out this week, the Screen Actors Guild Awards have reached their final list of nominees.
They won't fear it until they understand it.
Oppenheimer and Barbie were at the top of the list with 4 nods each. They were followed by Killers of the Flower Moon and American Fiction with 3 nominations apiece. The SAG Awards will stream live for the first time ever on February 24th.
The Stars Tonight is brought to you by Lastman's Bad Boy, court-approved liquidation sale.
This is not the final budget. Over the coming weeks, the Budget Committee will review the staff budget. The committee will build on the public consultation process.
Updating our top stories, the first budget proposal under Mayor Olivia Chow includes a property tax hike of 10.5%. Chow and city officials say the hike could be even higher without support from other levels of government.
The amount that we've traveled, we've never experienced anything like that. So I think you just get to the airport and you hope that nothing like that happens.
Scary, yeah. Like, how would that happen?
Air Canada is investigating after a passenger on board a flight from Toronto to Dubai opened a cabin door before takeoff and fell onto the tarmac. The airline says it's not clear what led to the passenger opening the door.
I'd like to say unusual, but unfortunately it's all too common.
There's concern about conditions at Toronto's South Detention Centre. The maximum security jail houses up to 2,000 inmates and is being consistently put into lockdown because of staffing shortages. Lawyers and judges say this is contributing to poor conditions and rising violence amongst the prison population.
On the markets, the Canadian dollar is up a fraction to 74.73 U.S. American benchmark oil losing 85 cents, closing at 71.44 a barrel. And the TSX Composite Index adding 18 points, ending the day at 20,989.
A new report says capping the number of temporary residents coming to Canada would be harmful to the economy. The report is from Desjardins Security, as shared by Bloomberg. Amid housing challenges, it suggests shutting the door on temporary workers and international students would deepen a potential recession this year and slow the subsequent recovery. The federal immigration minister has said a firm cap is not on the table, but Ottawa is considering other policy moves in response to record immigration levels.
The Business Report is brought to you by Canadian Western Bank, the bank built for business.
Tonight, campuses caught in the crossfire.
They're scared to go to school.
The Israel-Hamas war prompts protests and class action lawsuits at Canadian universities. That story and more later on CTV National News.
It is a new product with a familiar ring.
A new smartphone accessory is creating a buzz at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas.
Our backgrounds in technology, working for Apple, working for BlackBerry, and actually wanting to build a product for creators and a new generation of people that have never used a keyboard on a device.
A British company has designed a new keyboard for touchscreen cell phones. The retro-looking product is marketed to 3 core audiences: iPhone users with dexterity or accessibility challenges, members of the younger generation who may be looking to stand out, and people who miss their old smartphone keyboards. I miss them.
It's got a BlackBerry vibe, that's for sure. A lot of people didn't want to get rid of those. Weather-wise, there are several snow events to be aware of.
There are. So one tomorrow, bringing about 2 to 5 centimeters. So something to be aware of. It's not a significant amount of snow, but any snow definitely impacts the drive. And then Friday night into Saturday, that's a bigger weather maker on the way, set to bring the potential in some areas in southern Ontario of 20 centimeters. For us, more like 5 to 10.
All right. Thank you, Jess. Be sure to join Omar Sachedina tonight at 11 for CTV National News, followed by Andrea Case with our next local newscast at 11:30.
In the meantime, our coverage continues anytime on CP24 and online at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Jessica Smith and all of us at CTV News, thank you for watching and have a good night.